that will be clear for you. What we mean by a boilerplate. So, Suren, the first question is to you. What exactly is a boilerplate?
Okay. So, guys, there are a lot of space. You can come and sit. So basically, I will answer the question, but before that, let's make it a discussion. So we have a panel here, and what I think the most productive way is that some of you guys might have heard about this boilerplate term, and many of you might know what it is also. But let's have a discussion and clarify all the questions we have about boilerplates and what they do, what it's supposed to be. So basically, boilerplate is actually not a software engineering term. It's not coming from our term, right? The origins of the term boilerplate is from the newspaper industry. So there's a story behind that. You can Google and find it out. I'm not going to waste time telling the story. But what boilerplates in our context means is that any piece of code that we can repeatedly use in different areas of a program or in multiple programs without actually changing it, right? So that means any piece of reusable code can be named as a boilerplate. But so in our context, I think boilerplate code has been discouraged for many reasons in the past. If you go and do some research, you will see that people don't like boilerplate code that much, right? There are a few reasons behind that. If there is a lot of boilerplate code that we need to use in application development, it has certain problems, right? Mainly because it's somebody else's code. So when you try to use that, there will be some difficulties, right? And it's very difficult to sort of get a piece of code from somewhere and put it and then use it as it is. You will need to do modifications on top of that. So because of that, there are other techniques that have emerged over the years. Things like metaprogramming. Metaprogramming refers to the way that IDEs can generate code these days, right? So code generation is a popular alternative to boilerplate. And then we have convention over configuration, right? A technique where we use conventions rather than large configurations to sort of achieve something. And model-driven engineering is another concept where we have certain models can be generated, database models, everything can be generated. So those things are encouraged and used more often than boilerplate code. But I think here what we are talking about is not just boilerplate code, right? The concept that what Sachit was explaining is to do with boilerplate repositories, code repositories, right? So in that context, I think what we want to achieve is a set of reusable repositories for different technologies where people can use them as a starting point to start with a particular technology. So that is the motive behind this concept of using boilerplates to leverage on using new technology. Okay, so I think in the coming questions, I think we will cover most of it, how we are going to use it. So as for the answer to the question, I think this is what boilerplate is. It's a simple, reusable piece of code which you can use anywhere.
Yeah. Right. Thank you, sir. Yeah. So now further we move on, we will be able to understand why we have linked the new technology, the learning part of it, and the concept of boilerplate code. So I'd like to move to the second question. Is where we try to link these two things together. The nature of a good boilerplate in terms of new technology adaptation. So I think this question goes to Hasib because he has the best experience in doing the first ever boilerplate. So you could start with what you saw at that time as the issue and what you tried to solve. And
yeah, sure. One correction though before we start with the discussion. The first boilerplate, at least which I experienced, is not boilerplate JS. It was called EC framework sometime back. Like I think 10 years, almost 8-9 years ago, we created a set of frameworks which can be used. Because what we saw was at that time when we since we are in a particular niche specialization, product engineering, every product they wanted something, like they wanted a search, they wanted a reporting engine, they wanted a web portal so that they can actually expose their functionality to the users of the internet. So we saw this need that every project has certain features which are common to each other, and then we thought why not create something, and we call it a framework, right? So boilerplate is more of a technically you can say framework and boilerplate are a little bit two different things, but I think what we called EC framework at that time, which was a reusable code repository, was actually boilerplate. Coming back to the question of what is a good boilerplate, or what's the nature of a good boilerplate, I think the question more directing me towards a technical approach, but I think that's not really the most important thing. Most important thing is if you have a boilerplate, people should use it. So if you can get people to use it, if you have a community using it, then it's a good boilerplate. So everything else actually comes after that. For you to get it used by the community, what should you do? Maybe it's something to do with the technology. Maybe it's something to do with the code, right? Maybe it's something to do with the geekiness of the framework. Maybe it's all about some documentation, or maybe it's all about spreading the word. Right? So I think a boilerplate is good as how much of a community support it's having. So if we focus on that, other things usually fall in place. So we need to then strategize. Like if I take the examples again, just going back to history, the original EC frameworks we did like 10 years ago. We haven't had a community at all. It was more for private repository. It was used only by the projects within 999. It had a community but limited to 999 technology. And then I think probably the first major attempt to do something open was the boilerplate JS approach. That again came out of the necessity, just like the EC frameworks. Boilerplate JS came out of necessity, where HTML5 and JavaScript was there. There was no other framework actually supporting the single page application development. Angular wasn't there at that time. Most of the other frameworks, Lambda was not there. And then we had to create something of our own, and we thought, okay, it's good to go with a bit of an open approach, and it has its own successes, right? And it's no longer active. The third experience I have is with Asha and the team getting into serverless foundation, which again comes out of the necessity. Like the serverless is very new. You don't have a boilerplate where you can actually connect all of these pieces together, and then we created this set of frameworks, and we are trying to merge them into a boilerplate. And I see it's much more open approach. We can actually discuss what are the tactics we took throughout these journeys, but all throughout what I see common is the focus on having a good community.
Right. Now that is some good insight. Mostly we try to think of the technical aspect, but that has some really valuable inputs there as well. So Hasit, I want to extend you to the next question, is that the concept, how do you think that the concept of boilerplate would help us in adapting to or in using new technologies, doing new technology research? What is your answer to that? What do you think about it? Chandra also can contribute.
I think doing a boilerplate needs certain depth of knowledge on the technology platform. doing a boilerplate doesn't need a depth of knowledge, but getting someone to use your boilerplate needs depth of knowledge, right? Otherwise, nobody will use it. And that itself is probably the most important aspect of creating the boilerplate, the knowledge part of it. Plus, we have seen the boilerplates we had created actually position our company in a different state when it comes to competition all the time, because we are in the services business. So, as a business, having a boilerplate is, I would say, a set of series of boilerplates is sort of utmost importance, right? When we get to discussions with prospective customers, the question they ask is, do you know JavaScript? And everybody else say, yes, we know JavaScript, we have 50 or JavaScript developers, all of that. But we say, we got into JavaScript before Angular got into JavaScript, or Blazor got into JavaScript, and this is our framework which we created at that time. Discussion is over. There's no question asked after that about the competency. It's the same, like serverless, right? It's absolutely same discussion. So, in terms of getting future projects and positioning our company at a different level, I haven't seen a better tool than a boilerplate, to be very honest, because that speaks for itself. Like serverless, one example, I should give that credit to Ashan. We see two of our serverless libraries being mentioned on the home page of the main serverless GitHub page, saying that these two are sort of two good tools to be used. And when people ask about cloud, we don't talk about cloud, we don't talk about how many experts we have, we just pull out the GitHub page and show it to them, discussion is over. So knowledge, I would say, one major aspect, but as a company, for us to go forward, we need boilerplates.
Right.